I didn't even want to go to the wedding. If I'm being honest, I had already decided weeks ago that I wouldn't show up. I had my scrubs ready for an extra shift at the hospital, and I was perfectly okay with spending the evening dealing with patients instead of fake smiles and forced family conversations. But my mom begged me. "Please, just come for a little while," she said over the phone. "It would mean a lot." What she didn't say, but I understood anyway, was that she didn't want people asking why one daughter was missing. So I agreed. Big mistake. The wedding was held at one of those fancy countryside venues about an hour outside the city. White flowers everywhere, expensive decorations, soft music playing in the background. Everything looked like it came straight out of a Pinterest board. I arrived straight from my shift. I didn't even have time to go home. I had quickly changed out of my scrubs in the hospital locker room and into a simple navy dress I kept in my car for emergencies. My hair was still tied back, and I had that faint, tired look you get after a 12-hour shift. But I thought it was fine. I wasn't the bride. I wasn't even part of the main family circle, at least not the way my stepsister liked to define it. I was just there to show my face. Now, about my stepsister, Ashley. Ashley and I were never close, not even a little. We met when we were teenagers after our parents got married. She was always the type who needed to be the center of attention, perfect hair, perfect clothes, perfect life, and she made sure everyone knew it. I was the opposite, quiet, focused, the kind of person who studied late, worked hard, and didn't care much about impressing people. Ashley used to call me boring. Then, when I got into nursing school, she upgraded that label. Just a nurse. She said it like it was something small, something embarrassing. Meanwhile, she bounced between jobs, chasing things that looked glamorous but never really stuck with anything. Still, somehow, she always acted like she was above me. When I walked into the venue, I immediately felt out of place. Everyone was dressed like they were attending a celebrity event. Designer dresses, tailored suits, expensive jewelry. It was obvious Ashley had made sure this wedding looked high-end. I spotted my mom near the entrance. Her face lit up when she saw me. "You came," she said, hugging me tightly. "Of course," I replied, forcing a small smile. "I said I would." She pulled back and looked at me. "You look tired." I am tired, honestly, but I'm okay. Before she could say anything else, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Well, you made it." I turned around. Ashley, in her wedding dress. And yes, she looked beautiful, I'll give her that. But the expression on her face, same as always, judging. She looked me up and down slowly. "Wow," she said, tilting her head. "You came straight from work or something?" "I did," I replied calmly. She let out a small laugh. "Of course you did." There it was, that tone. I stayed quiet, but she wasn't done. Ashley leaned a little closer, lowering her voice just enough so it wouldn't make a scene, but loud enough that I could feel the sting. "You could have at least tried a little harder," she said. "This is a wedding, not a hospital shift." My mom immediately stepped in. "Ashley, that's enough." But Ashley waved her off. "I'm just saying, people are going to ask who you are." I crossed my arms slightly. "And what should I say?" I asked. She smiled, that fake, sweet smile she always used when she was about to say something mean. "Oh, don't worry, I'll handle it." I should have walked away right then. I really should have. The ceremony itself was fine. I sat near the back, mostly keeping to myself. I watched Ashley walk down the aisle, smiling like she had everything in the world exactly how she wanted it. And maybe she did. The groom, Daniel, seemed like a decent guy. I didn't know him well, but he looked genuinely happy. I didn't notice his father much at first, just another well-dressed man in the front row. After the ceremony came the reception. That's when things got worse. People started mingling, drinking, laughing. I stayed near one of the side tables, sipping water and checking my phone now and then. I wasn't trying to draw attention, but somehow Ashley found me anyway. Of course she did. She walked over with a small group of her friends, all of them dressed like they'd stepped out of a magazine. "Hey everyone," she said loudly, grabbing their attention. "This is my stepsister." They all looked at me politely. I gave a small nod. "Hi." Ashley put her hand on my shoulder, and she's just a nurse. She said it so casually, like it was a punchline. There was a small pause. One of her friends gave an awkward smile. "Oh, that's nice," she said. But I could see it, the subtle shift in their expressions, like I had suddenly been placed in a lower category. I felt my face heat up, but I didn't react. I had dealt with worse things in a hospital than a few judgmental looks. Still, it hurt, more than I wanted to admit. Ashley laughed lightly. "She practically lives at the hospital," she added, "works all the time." "Someone has to," I said quietly. She ignored that. "Anyway," she continued, already losing interest, "we have to go check on the seating arrangements." And just like that, she walked away, leaving me standing there. I took a deep breath. "Just get through the night," I told myself. "Then you can leave." I stepped outside for some air. The evening was calm, a little cool, the kind of weather that should feel peaceful. I leaned against the railing, closing my eyes for a moment. That's when I heard a voice behind me. "Excuse me, miss." I turned around. It was the groom's father. He looked at me carefully, not in a rude way, more like he was trying to remember something. "I'm sorry," he said. "Have we met before?" I shook my head slightly. "I don't think so." He frowned a little. "No, I'm sure I've seen you somewhere." I gave a small, polite smile. "I work at St. Mary's Hospital. Maybe that's where?" The moment I said that, his expression changed completely. His eyes widened. "Yes," he said slowly. "That's it." He took a step closer. "You're the nurse." I blinked. "The nurse who—" He stopped himself for a second, like he was trying to find the right words. Then he looked at me again, this time with something very different in his eyes. Respect, gratitude, almost disbelief. "My God," he said quietly, "it's really you." I stood there, confused. "I'm sorry." He shook his head slightly, like he couldn't believe it. "You took care of my son." My heart skipped. Daniel, the groom. And suddenly, for a second, I just stared at him. Everything around me, the music, the laughter, the noise from inside, felt like it faded into the background. "You took care of my son." Those words hit me harder than I expected, because now I remembered. It was about 8 months ago, one of those nights I'll never forget. The ER was packed, every bed full, alarms going off, people rushing everywhere. It was one of those shifts where you don't even realize how tired you are until it's over. That's when they brought him in. Daniel. He had been in a car accident. Nothing minor either, it was serious. He was unconscious when he came in, blood on his shirt, his breathing uneven. I was assigned to his case, along with the attending physician. We didn't have time to think, we just moved. Vitals, IV line, oxygen, monitoring. I remember calling out numbers while trying to keep my hands steady. His condition was unstable, very unstable. And then things got worse. His heart rate started dropping. The room shifted instantly. "Stay with me," I remember saying, even though he couldn't hear me. The doctor started giving orders. We followed every step, fast and precise. There was a moment, just a few seconds, but it felt like forever, when everything hung in the balance. And then, we got him back. I stayed with him for hours after that, monitoring, adjusting, watching every small change. That's what nurses do. We don't just do the big, dramatic moments. We stay. We make sure things don't fall apart after the crisis passes. He was moved out of critical condition a couple of days later. I checked on him whenever I could. He didn't remember much from that night. Most patients don't. But I remembered him. And now his father remembered me. "You were there the entire time," his father said, his voice a little unsteady. The doctor told us later if the response had been even a minute slower. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I understood. I shook my head slightly. I was just doing my job. That's what I always say. Because it's true, but also because I never know what else to say. He looked at me like I had just said something unbelievable. "Just your job?" he repeated softly. There was a pause. Then he let out a small breath. "No," he said. You saved my son's life." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I stayed quiet. He straightened a little, still looking at me with that same expression of recognition. "And now you're here, at his wedding," he said, almost to himself. I gave a small nod. "He's marrying my stepsister." For a second, he looked confused. "Your stepsister?" "Yes." Another pause. Then something clicked in his mind. "Oh," he said slowly. And I could see it. He was putting things together. The way I was standing alone, the way I was dressed compared to everyone else, the fact that no one had been talking to me. "What did she say your name was earlier?" he asked. "She didn't." He frowned. "That doesn't seem right." I let out a small breath. "It's fine," I said. "We're not very close." He studied my face for a moment. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. "She introduced you as just a nurse, didn't she?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to. The silence said enough. His expression changed. Not just surprise this time. Something sharper. Something like disappointment. "That's not right," he said quietly. Before I could respond, he turned slightly, looking back toward the reception hall. Then he looked at me again. "Come with me." I blinked. "Oh, no, it's okay," I said quickly. "I don't want to—" "Please," he said, not demanding but firm. There was something in his tone that made it hard to refuse, so after a small hesitation, I nodded. "Okay." We walked back inside together, and suddenly I was very aware of everything again. The lights, the music, the people, and the fact that heads were starting to turn, because the groom's father, the host of this entire event, was walking in with me. I felt uncomfortable instantly. This is a bad idea, I thought, but it was already happening. He led me straight toward the center of the room, where Ashley and Daniel were standing, talking to guests. Ashley saw me first, and I swear I've never seen her look that confused before. "Dad?" Daniel said, turning as well. "Is everything okay?" His father didn't answer right away. He looked at his son, then at me, then back at his son. "Do you remember the nurse who took care of you after your accident?" Daniel frowned slightly. "Not really. I mean, I know there was a whole team, but—" His father stepped slightly to the side, so I was fully in view. The room felt quiet. Not completely silent, but quieter, like people could sense something was happening. "This is her," his father said. Daniel looked at me. Really looked this time, like he was trying to see something he had missed before. I'm sorry," he said. "I don't remember clearly, but—" "You don't have to," I said quickly. "You were in bad shape, that's normal." But his father wasn't finished. "She stayed with you the entire night," he continued. "The doctor told us later your survival wasn't just luck." Now people were definitely listening. I could feel it. Ashley let out a small, awkward laugh. "Okay, I mean, that's nice, but—" Her voice didn't sound as confident anymore. His father turned to Ashley, and the look on his face, completely different from before. "That's not just a nurse," he said. The words landed hard, the same phrase Ashley had used earlier, but now it sounded completely different. "That's the woman who helped save your husband's life." Silence. I could see it spreading across the room, people looking at me, then at Ashley, then back at me. Ashley's face changed, just slightly, but enough, because for the first time she didn't look in control, and I stood there, not saying a word, not trying to prove anything, but somehow everything had already changed. The silence didn't break right away. It just stretched. You know those moments where everything feels frozen and you can almost hear people thinking? That's exactly what it felt like. Ashley was still standing there, her smile completely gone now. Daniel looked between me and his father, trying to process everything. And I just wished I could disappear. "I didn't know," Daniel said finally, his voice quieter than before. I gave a small nod. "It's okay," I replied. you weren't really in a position to remember. That got a small, nervous laugh from someone nearby, but the tension didn't go away. Ashley crossed her arms. "Well, I mean, that's her job, right?" she said. There it was. She was trying to take control again, trying to make it sound small. I felt that familiar sting in my chest. But before I could say anything, Daniel's father spoke again. "No," he said firmly. "That's not something you reduce to just a job." His tone wasn't loud, but it carried. Ashley blinked. "I didn't mean it like that." "But you said it," he replied. Now people were definitely watching, not even pretending not to. My mom looked like she wanted to step in, but didn't know how. A few guests shifted awkwardly, and I just stood there, wishing this moment would end. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "Wait," he said, looking at me again. "You were there the whole time?" I nodded. "Yeah, for most of the night." He let out a slow breath. "I don't even know what to say," he admitted. "You don't have to say anything. Seriously, I'm just glad you're okay." And I meant that. I really did. But something had changed in the room. The way people were looking at me now, it wasn't the same as before. No more polite distance, no more quiet judgment. Now it was something else. Respect, curiosity, maybe a little guilt. One of Ashley's friends, the same one from earlier, stepped forward slightly. "So, you're the one who helped save him?" she asked. I shrugged a little. I was part of the team. She looked at me differently now. "Oh my God," she said softly. "That's actually amazing." Ashley noticed it too, and I could see it bothering her. A lot. "Okay, can we not make this a whole thing?" Ashley said, forcing a laugh. "It's my wedding." That part was true, and honestly, she wasn't wrong for wanting the attention back. I took that as my chance. "I should probably go," I said quietly. I looked at my mom. "I stayed. That's what matters, right?" She looked torn, but she nodded. I turned slightly, ready to leave, but Daniel stopped me. "Hey, wait." I paused. He stepped closer. "I know I don't remember everything, but thank you." His voice was real, not forced, not polite, just real. I gave a small smile. "You're welcome." Then his father stepped forward again. "And thank you from me," he added, "for everything you did." I nodded. "Of course." And that was it. No dramatic speech, no big emotional moment, just quiet understanding. I started walking toward the exit, and this time, people moved out of the way. Not like before when I was invisible. Now they noticed. I heard a few whispers as I passed. "Is that her? That's the nurse. I can't believe." It felt strange, uncomfortable even, because I hadn't done anything differently than I do every day. That's the thing people don't always understand. Nursing isn't about one big heroic moment. It's about showing up, again and again, even when you're tired, even when no one notices. I reached the doors and stepped outside. The cool air hit my face again, and this time it felt different, lighter. I took a deep breath, then another. A few minutes later, my mom came out after me. "Hey," she said softly. I turned. "Hey." She looked at me for a moment. Then she hugged me, tight. "I'm proud of you," she said. Simple words, but they meant everything. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Thanks," I said quietly. She pulled back. "I'm sorry about earlier," she added. "You didn't deserve that." I gave a small shrug. "I'm used to it." She shook her head. "You shouldn't be." We stood there for a moment in silence. Then I checked my phone. I still had time to make it back for a late shift if I wanted. "Are you leaving?" she asked. Yeah, I think I've done my part. She smiled slightly. Yeah, you definitely have. As I walked to my car, I thought about everything that had happened. Ashley's words, the looks from her friends, the moment her confidence slipped. But honestly, that wasn't what stayed with me. What stayed with me was something else. A man recognizing me, not for how I looked, not for what I wore, but for what I had done. A life I helped save, standing right there, starting a new chapter. And the truth finally being seen, without me having to fight for it. I got into my car and sat there for a second. Then I started the engine. As I drove away, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not anger, not sadness, peace. Because at the end of the day, I wasn't just a nurse. I was exactly who I had worked so hard to become. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like more than enough.